morning, everybody, and welcome to the Positude podcast. I am your host, Maggie Hart, and I'm very excited to be here this week to share another hour with you. Hopefully spreading some knowledge, sharing current events, sharing life stories with you, and enjoying each other's company for an hour just like you would in the privacy of your living room with a close friend, having a cup of coffee and just relaxing. I also want to spread the positivity and get rid of the negativity in your life. We can work on different things together and help each other navigate through these tough times that we're facing here in our country. With the recent attempted assassination on former President Donald Trump, it brought to mind some scenarios that I've been thinking about, possibly you've been thinking about as well, in regards to not just the safety of our president, but the safety of ourselves and our families as well. Undoubtedly, we live in unprecedented times. It's truly a time where we have to closely watch and care for our children and make sure that they're safe at any given moment, in any situation, at any place. Being safe and protecting your family is most parents. While I am the last person on the planet that wants to rush summer in any way, shape, or form, especially because of the lengths of the winter in the Northeast where I reside, I have to face the fact that we are going to be coming into August here in about a week and a half. And as a mom, this would be the time of year that I would start to turn a watchful eye toward back to school sales and clothing sales and starting to prepare for my child's entry into a new grade in the fall. And so I'm thinking a lot of you are doing the same thing. I've actually seen some people who have told me that they've got all of their clothes and their book packs ready and their school supplies, and they are raring to go. They're ready to have that privacy back now that their children have been home for the summer. I never looked at it that way. For me, it was always a blessing for my child and my children to be home during the summer months and enjoy a bit of childhood, to have that freedom to be able to run and play and visit their friends and stay up late and have sleepovers and pizza parties and go swimming and just engage in normal, wholesome childhood activity. From a selfish standpoint, I was also extremely happy that I didn't have to worry about homework and book bags and packing bag lunches or providing money if they chose to buy pizza that day at lunch. It just is an easier time for the families, I feel, if you're a close-knit family, to be able to spend more time with your children, possibly take a day trip, or if you're so fortunate, an extended vacation, even as much as a week or so, and enjoy time with your family. It's the season for barbecues and cookouts and fireworks and jumping in ponds and chasing fireflies and watching the clouds flit across the sky, imagining different shapes in the clouds and sometimes actually seeing things in the clouds, chasing frogs and all kinds of critters, helping a bird that's broken its wing in a shoebox. So many outdoor memories in nature from my childhood and from my children's childhoods that absolutely bring me to a state of joy when I revisit those times in my mind. As my children grew, I was very sad when they left the nest, actually. Maybe unlike some of you, I was very sad to see them, happy for them to be able to spread their wings, absolutely, but sad to see them leave the nest, knowing that those days of going to amusement parks and summer carnivals and swimming and riding bicycles and all of that was mostly coming to a close with the start of the new school year. More responsibilities, are on us, and homework and studying for quizzes. And back then we had spelling tests, which our lovely school system has deemed necessary to mostly take out of their curriculum. A lot of the teachers do not teach spelling anymore. So many things have changed from when my kids were growing up, that now it seems as though a lot of free time is spent on video games or in front of the television, or on the phone, on social media. And kids just aren't, for the most part, getting outside like they used to and playing with their friends and riding bicycles or skateboards or going to parks or visiting each other's homes like they used to. And if they do, it seems as though they have the phone strapped to their hand, or they're wanting to play the next new and exciting video game with their friends rather than bake some cookies or play a board game and engage in all of those wholesome activities that we used to do as children, and that hopefully our children did as well. But coming into the school year, I know that so many schools now have armed guards and metal detectors and things like that in place to protect the safety of our children as far as their physical well-being. But what about their mental and their emotional well-being? With all of the agendas that are being put forth in the public education system, I feel as though the children today are sorely lacking. And I speak to a lot of particularly Christian parents, but parents in general, who feel let down by the system, and they feel betrayed by the system because they don't necessarily want to teach their children about the LGBTQ movement or about Antifa, or have them engage with another child in the classroom that wants to be a cat that day or a dog, and all of the cosplay that goes around with that too, the little headbands with the ears and the clip-on tails, and then in the later grades, the piercings and all of those things also. They may not want to have their child be influenced by today's youth who curse and use depravity and engage in sex at a very young age, and are wearing makeup and dressing very provocatively also at a very young age. They might not want their child to see that a peer who's the same age as they are is allowed to run amok in the neighborhood, or has their own cell phone at a very early age and is able to have the freedom to get onto a social media or a gaming platform where there could be severe consequences in the form of predators and kidnappers and all sorts of horrible things. They may be encouraging their children to read books rather than watch movies. There are still summer reading programs out there at the local libraries for children to partake and enjoy and to learn and grow from. Reading is fundamental. Teaching a child to read and watching their faces light up as they're into their favorite book, allowing them to use their imagination to picture the characters or the scenarios in their minds that they read in a book, even if it is on a Kindle. I'm a paper girl myself. I prefer to read regular books because I love to turn the pages. I love the smell of the books. I love bookmarks, even though those are coming harder and harder to find. I actually went to a local college about 6 months ago to purchase some new bookmarks at their school store, and I was told that they don't have any bookmarks there anymore, and they haven't for a very long time. Because all of the curriculum is done on the computer, there's no need for bookmarks anymore. So I expressed my disdain to the lady in charge at the counter, who happened to be about my age. at least in appearance, and she totally agreed with me and couldn't believe that they didn't have any bookmarks there, and she read traditional books as well and directed me to the local bookstore that I knew existed, but I just thought that I would find something from the college gift store and be able to support them. So as a result, I ended up ordering a bunch of pretty ones online, and I do make my own from time to time. I make the clear laminated ones out of dried flowers and things like that, and I do cardstock and card making. But to be totally honest, the little kid in me was very excited to receive my 3D bookmarks with animals on them that twisted and turned and seemed to move as I manipulated the bookmarks and turned them to and from the light. I was so excited to get my 3D bookmarks for like $2 from a mail order company that it totally made my day. And I do use bookmarks and highlighters in my notes while preparing for my shows, especially if I'm reading part of a book for learning purposes for everybody to enjoy and to share different perspectives. So bookmarks are essential to me, and those are one of the things, I guess it's kind of like shoes for some women, that I can never seem to have enough of. I also wanted to order some for my upcoming child's birthday, who also is an avid reader and likes to read paper books. Although, I just found out recently that they subscribe now to like a $10 a month unlimited reading program on their phone. I don't think that's good for your eyes. Just my opinion, reading for hours off of your phone. A tablet would be a better alternative, I would think, and she did have a Nook at one time that I bought her, but I don't know, there's just something about the physical quality of a book to me that is appealing. Talking earlier about crafting, that made up a huge part of my development and growth for the children, was making crafts and using our hands and using our reasoning skills to make certain items, whether it be a birdhouse or a bookmark or possibly some sewing or an Indian village or anything like that. We enjoyed and spent many, many hours doing crafts as well as playing board games the old-fashioned way, even into their teenage years, their later teenage years, and then learning to bake and making cakes and cookies and learning how to cook traditional meals, things like that. These were things that were taught to me as a young child, and the things that weren't taught to me because my parents didn't know about them or how to, well, in particular, sew. My mom was not much of a sewer. She had never learned or to crochet. So I taught myself. I went out and I got books and I learned how to do cross stitch and embroidery and latch hook rugs, if anybody remembers those, and taught myself the essentials of crochet. I'm still not very good, but I can crochet straight lines back and forth and make a simple baby or a puppy blanket. I enjoyed that when I was young. And making pot holders, those are trendy now. That's like a big deal to have that little red loom that we all used to have as a child. They used to be metal, although now a lot of them are plastic. I actually had my girlfriend up a couple of weeks ago and we spent the evening making pot holders. And apparently it's a thing and it's trending, and people are buying special fabrics for their loops and ordering special dyes and all of that. And so what used to be something that we would make during the summertime or at a summer camp now has become popular, as is a lot of the old school ways. Sewing, cooking, gardening, homemade crafts, all of that have come back around full circle and become popular. Mostly, I think, due to the rise in COVID, when people were trapped in their homes and for lack of something else to do, decided to go back to the old school ways. Which brings me back to my topic. How many of your children know how to crochet or sew or know how to make something out of wood, a basic skill, a birdhouse? Or how many of your children know how to cook and bake? How many of your children know how to find their way out of the woods if they get lost? Do they know how to read a compass? Do they know how to build a lean-to or a simple shelter to protect them from the elements should they become lost and not able to find their way home for several hours or possibly an overnight excursion? How many of your children can tent camp or primitive camp and know how to catch a fish or know how to shoot a gun or a bow and arrow? How many of your children know how to clean that fish or that deer if they're able to shoot one or bow hunt one or catch one with a fishing pole? How many of your children know how to make their own fishing pole so that if they are stuck somewhere by a source of water, they're able to survive without being hungry for a night? How many of your children know what things in the woods are safe to eat? Do they know about poisonous and safe mushrooms? Do they know that certain berries are poisonous and others safe to eat? Do they know what herbs can heal them should they become sick? Do they know what vegetables to grow and how to preserve them, how to can them, how to freeze them, how to use one of those vacuum seal machines, or how to use a dehydrator, or how to dry herbs and vegetables using nothing more than the sun and some tin foil, or how to make a simple solar dehydrator or a solar cooker? Do they know how to build a fire? And if not, can they build and use a solar cooker? Do they know how to start and run your barbecue grill? Do they know how to make their own light if there's no light and the batteries go dead in the flashlight? Do they know how to use and utilize the things around them to keep them safe and warm and sheltered should they need to? Do they know their local geography and topography? Are they able to identify different rocks and trees? Do they know how to identify birds? Do they know how to identify sounds of danger in nature? Do they know how to defend themselves should a violent person or an animal that may pose danger to them should come into contact with them or in proximity with them? Do they know how to scare away animals? Are they familiar with tying simple knots that can help them to not only make a lean-to or a simple structure to keep themselves warm at night, but also to fish and to trap animals should they need to in order to be able to have something to eat? Also, knots are great for being able to tie off a little boat or a dinghy. They're great for being able to tie up your food in a tree if you're in bear country. Do they know how to make a simple air conditioner with a styrofoam chest should the power go out and it's 95 to 100 degrees? Do they know how to read the sun? Do they know how to tell if the weather is changing and if an impending, possible dangerous storm approaches them if they're out in the wilderness? If your children reside in a city, do they know how to safely cross the street? Do they know how to food shop without having it delivered in where a stranger might find that they're home alone? Do they know not to use their own real names and to use your account? Do they know how to make change? Do they know how to play without a computer or a phone or modern technology? Do they know how to do an apartment garden and grow vegetables in containers in case they're in a city dwelling? Have you taught your children the basics of electricity and currents? Have you taught your child how to fix basic machinery like a lawnmower, or how to jump their car, or how to fix a flat tire, or what to do if a warning light comes on a vehicle when they're old enough to drive a car. And if they're not and they're still riding a bicycle, do they know how to fix the flat on the bike, or change out the chain, or do they know how to get from point A to point B safely using public transportation? Do they have the phone numbers of all of your family members, or someone that they can call in case of an emergency? Do they know how to use a walkie-talkie? Do they know Morse code? Can they sew a button on their shirt if it's lost, or a snap? Do they know how to tie a traditional shoe? Do they know how to tell time without the use of a digital clock? Can they use a traditional watch? Are they good readers so that they're able to read things both in print and in cursive, so that they can look over historical documents and read those and with your help understand what their rights are supposed to be? Can they grow an organic garden, and do they know how to kill the detrimental bugs in the garden by use of natural materials rather than chemicals? Are they able to treat themselves in the case of a snake bite or a bee bite, or if they get a case of poison ivy or have a small cut or nick, or even something more serious like a broken bone? Do they know how to stop bleeding? Are they familiar with the care and raising of both domestic and wild animals? Are they able to raise a pig or a chicken? Do they know how to clean a chicken coop and clean the eggs? And what is the proper cooking temperature for certain types of meats so that it's safe for them to consume? Can they drive a stick shift vehicle? How are their reasoning skills? Do your kids think quickly on their feet? And if not, are they able to work through the steps on their own to solve a problem without having a panic or anxiety attack, or looking for someone else to help them solve the problem? Because in a case of danger where they need to think quickly, your kids should be able to know how to work through a scenario and get themselves safe. Have they developed close ties with other peers? Do they have other friends their age that are good, wholesome kids that they can rely on to talk to and share their thoughts and feelings and play with? Are they social creatures, or do they stay in their room contained behind the confines of a computer screen or a television screen, talking only to their friends through social media or on the phone? How much face-to-face interaction does your child engage in the course of a day? And do you as a parent shut off the television and not allow any technology at the table? Or are you guilty of texting your child back and forth at the dinner table? How many hours a day do you spend on social media? Are you setting a good example for your children? You may ask where I'm going with all of this and where I'm leading. Well, I'm going to get there in just a second. My experience has been, from talking with parents, that not only are they very disgusted with the school system in general, and also the possible dangers that should they send their child to school and they're not in favor of them getting the jab, that there is a possibility that their children very well could get vaccinated without their knowledge at the school. I've heard of cases of this happening. And if they're totally against that, what protection do you have as a parent if your child is in public school? What skills that your child will truly need and utilize as they grow into young adults and then subsequently adults, to be able to navigate and take care of themselves in today's society? So many parents are disgruntled and disappointed, but I have to say that a lot of people also rely on the public school system to raise their children. And that may be just the cold hard facts because they have to work, sometimes 2 and 3 jobs, to be able to support their families. However, having said that, there's another alternative, or possibly another alternative. This is an opportunity for your child to learn and to grow and possibly gain some knowledge on many, if not all, of the skills that I previously discussed. And they're able to do so in hopefully a wholesome, loving, supportive environment where they're not going to be subjected to other people's morals, opinions, i.e. the LGBTQ movement, or the fact that a child wants to become a frog that day, or pretend to be a squirrel for an hour, or the fact that there are influences from other children that are very sexual in nature. It's my belief that sexuality is something that should be taught in the home, that children should learn their parents' moral codes and learn what their parents want to teach them, and not be open to all of these horrific things that are happening in today's public school system. There are children that are having sex at 8 and 9 years of age. They're being educated in all types of heinous sorts of sexual behavior by the public schools. So a lot of these parents are choosing to homeschool their children. And that's where I'm going with this. Homeschool. Have you considered it as a possible alternative for your child or children? Have you thought of different ways that you could possibly make this work for your family if you were so inclined to do so? Are you able to, and would you be able to volunteer to possibly teach a course or a mini course for the children that were involved in that program? Before you say I can't do it and it's not possible, let me share the story with you of a little girl whose mom works, and she wanted to homeschool her child. So she became friends with some other moms in the homeschool group and developed a relationship with them so that she felt comfortable with them. And they would pick up the child, bring the child to homeschool, and then at the end of the day, bring the child back home to her home, which was typically a latchkey setting. The child is about 11 years old and was left alone until mom returned from work. But she was being taught the basic skills to be able to be self-sufficient during the time that mom was still at work, and actually able to help mom with the housework and possibly start dinner and help her mom's day go more smoothly when she got home. This child, who had previously been doing homeschool, or more realistically what I'd like to call unschool, was left to her own devices for the better part of every single weekday. And she wasn't learning much, and she wasn't staying on track, and she wasn't being geared to be studious. Her mom did the best job that she could with her, but she was totally afraid to send her to public school again, because of some personal relationship problems that the child had had with other peers, mainly bullying and teasing. And this child had some qualities that made her very sensitive. So her feelings got hurt, and she would come home crying. And she didn't want to go back into that environment, and she didn't want to learn the things that they were teaching, nor did her mom want her to learn the things that they were teaching at the public school. So they worked around it. They found a way to make it work for them. And I think each case can be individual, and with a little creativity, it's possible for parents who work 1 or 2 jobs and single parents to be able to find an affordable way and a feasible way to do this. You just have to want to do the work that's involved in setting something like this up for your child, if you're so inclined. I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to share with you my personal experiences with homeschooling and the wonderful environment that I was very, very thankful, and still am very thankful, to have been able to be an integral part of, to help children learn and grow in a safe environment. We're going to stop here and talk about the radio station that you're listening to. We're totally listener funded, so please check out the main page, check out other shows and programs you may be interested. Jump on the chat room if you feel like you want to talk or you have a perspective or opinion to share. And please, whatever you can do to donate, whether it be $1 or $20, please do so that we can keep our network going. And if you have your own business and you want to be a superstar, please consider becoming a sponsor on our network. If you don't have a professional commercial, I'm sure, should you approach the owner, that the owner and the producer can come up with something that you will totally love. It's a great way to be able to promote your business and support us as well. If you're into merchandising, please contact the network and see if there's a need. Possibly they could use your business to be able to print out and use things that you can create as merchandise or to sell as merchandise for the network. I'm on 3 different networks, so this may not apply to all of the networks, but I know that there's at least one person out there that's looking for a decent merch rep, and you may be that person. The introductory and ending music, and a lot of times my break time music, are provided by my good buddy Pat Carr. Pat's an amazing original musician, originally from Louisiana. Please check him out at http://www.itunes.com/Pat Carr. Send him a message. He's on SoundClick, he's on Reverb Nation, he's on YouTube. He is all over the place. Wonderful guy and great musician. Please tell him Maggie sent you. Tonight's song, however, is from another good friend of mine, Barry Cooney. Barry and I have a long relationship of about 8 years, when he and I met on the chat room at my first radio station, and we've remained friends over the years, and he also makes quality original music that I'd like for you to enjoy. If you do, please get a hold of me at Maggie, MAGGIE _Heart, HEART, at Outlook.com, and I'll pass the word along to Barry about how much you love his stuff. We'll be back after this. Thanks for listening.
Not what I have shown you. You hear not what I have said. Your eyes are no longer open. They tell me you are dead. The doctor said you fight hard. You gave it all you had. You left us all so quickly, and in our hearts was sad. Well, leave us now, my darling. Leave us now, my friend. You've only started living to find the living end. In other words, we'll meet soon if God so makes his way. Teach lost souls to praise love like you did to us each day. flesh is cold and pale now, but your mind it lives on. We'll all grieve your absence. Your impressions were so strong. Well, leave is not my darling. Well, leave is not my friend. You've only started leaving to find the leaving end. In Greece, I got you go now. Oh, I wish it were not so. He calls to you, my lovely. Oh, I know you now must go. The ground it never seemed so cold. To time it touched your face. The rain will never cease to fall, like teardrops from my face. Oh, leave is not my darling. Oh, leave is not my friend. You've only started leaving to find the living end.
We're back. Thank you for joining me for the second half of the Positude podcast. I am your host, Maggie Hart, and you just listened to my good buddy, Barry Cooney. Please give him a shout out and email me at maggie_hart@outlook.com. Let me know what you thought of his music so I can pass it along to old Bear. Something tells me, even though this isn't a positive song for the Positude podcast, that you could feel the emotion in his voice. He is so deep. He's as deep as the deepest ocean when it comes to emotions, I think, and I enjoy his music, and I would hope that you did as well. Moving on to the second segment here, talking about homeschooling and the possibilities of doing so. While I've touted the benefits of homeschooling before in my shows, I don't know that I've ever fully shared my personal experiences with it, and I'd like to do that with you tonight so that you have an idea of what we were able to create and what possibly you could expect. Because I do volunteer work in my local community, I was approached by 3 or 4 parents who, in the course of my interactions with them, at first they were very shy and didn't want to come up to me and start talking to me. And when I broached them in conversation, what I discovered was they all had the same story. They were all transplants from different areas. They all had children, and surprisingly, they were shunned by the locals in the area, and their children were shunned by the local children in the area. They tried to join some social groups and didn't have much luck. In fact, the parents actually almost encouraged that their children did not play with these youngsters who were from out of town. I should mention that 3 out of the 4 families were homeschool families. One family was just getting into homeschooling. The children were too young to start school, but she had been considering it for the fall because she was adamant that her children would not attend a public school and be subject to all of the indoctrination and the things that we spoke about before. And let me correct that statement. One of those moms was actually born and bred in the state and had spent many years in the immediate area. so only the other 3 were transplants. But because she chose to homeschool her child and because she was a staunch Christian, she faced a lot of adversity as well and was looking for something social, a program where she could send her children to, that she wasn't doing all of the work by herself all of the time, but mostly so that her children could socialize with other children who had the same morals and beliefs that she was trying to instill in her children. They were all willing to help to make that happen. They were all willing to give a piece of themselves in a very busy schedule, being moms, stay-at-home moms, and homeschool moms as well. Because they spent so much time with their children, they didn't have much of a social life or parents to share other things with, friends that they could spend a lot of time with. And they were really willing to find people that were like-minded, that they could also engage in a pleasant form of conversation and not feel as though most moms do when they stay home with their kids, that when the husband comes home or the father comes home, oh my gosh, finally, adult interaction time. What one of the moms shared with me was that when she was a resident down south, she had actually participated in something like 3 co-ops for her children that were homeschool groups. And I asked her about them and how they operated, how they were funded, what were the particulars of their co-ops, and most importantly to me, what she liked about them and what she didn't, and what she would change if she could, and what she would improve upon if she could. She was more than happy to share her opinions and what she liked and what she didn't like, and then I also asked the kids what they liked and what they didn't like. I searched for about 6 months for a location to start a homeschool co-op for these parents, with the idea that as it grew and hopefully took hold, not only would these children and parents have some place to go, but we would also hope to encourage other parents and children to join as well, so that it would flourish and grow as time went on. 6 months about is what it took me, and believe it or not, I approached almost every single local church in our area. None of them, not one, was willing to house these children in a homeschool environment. The biggest reason, and in my opinion, the biggest excuse that most of them used was because of insurance reasons. And while I totally can appreciate that fact, I felt as though there had to be some way that they could just spare a room, especially when some of these buildings had many empty rooms, to just let our children come in and do like a 4-hour program once a week. It wasn't going to be a daily thing. It was a once-a-week program so that the kids could learn something and the parents could interact and the children could interact as well. I was actually told, and I'm ordained, by the way, in case some of you don't know that, but I was told by one of the local pastors that he actually homeschooled his child, but that they did not want to get involved in my program or our program because they would want to make sure if we went to their building that we were teaching the Bible that they wanted to be taught, i.e. it was a sect of Christianity like Baptist or Methodist or one of those, and he wanted to make sure that we were teaching the Bible to his standards and to his council standards. And he immediately followed that up with the fact that neither himself nor his council had the time or desire to run a homeschool co-op. So as a result, they did not want any part of it, and they wished me well and sent me on my way. I tried churches, I tried anybody else that would have us that I could think of, like 5 other churches in some public buildings, but for the public buildings, the rent would have been exorbitant and totally not doable for these families to be able to afford. And then the insurance that would have been incurred as a result on top of that, it would have been totally unaffordable. There were some actual homeschool schools in the area within about a 1.5 mile radius, but their tuition was like $1,200 a year, and you had to provide your own transportation to and from the homeschool site. So that wasn't an option for these parents either. And I just kept searching and praying and searching and praying, and one day I got lucky and found a little church that had a room in the back that they were looking to do something with, and it literally was a godsend. They charged an extremely small amount to rent the premises, and because they had the insurance, they said that they would cover us under their insurance. There were some guidelines, of course, to follow, most of which I put in place. The director there, or manager, or whatever her title is, didn't even have many specific requests, except for the fact that the children not run through any of the other rooms, that they would be, pretty much quarantined to the homeschool room and not able to run the rest of the premises, because they did have another business on site, and there were people that would come in and out for different church ministries and things like that. Also, the first thing that I did was do a criminal search for people in the area that were brought up on charges for anything to do with children, and I set the parents aware that unfortunately there were like 13 in the area, in the immediate 5-mile area of where we planned to have our homeschool. So I put some rules in place that I felt were fair for both the establishment and myself, to protect us, and also just some guidelines, basic guidelines that the children and parents needed to follow. It wasn't anything too stringent, it was reasonable, and I did have each of the parents sign a waiver, and they weren't allowed to be on the grounds to enter the classroom until the waiver was signed, to protect myself and the building. Not that I wanted to consider the fact that that was even a possibility, that we would at some point become potentially involved in some sort of liability suit, but in my guidance that I received from my prayer work, I was specifically told to do that, and so I did. We developed a curriculum based on what the children's desires were and the parents' desires, and I stressed that I would like for it to be a nature-based program, not just the typical co-op classes that would be involved in a regular homeschool co-op, i.e. music, art. Parents that wanted to join did want those subjects without question. They wanted music, they wanted art, they wanted a language. They wanted classes that they couldn't provide to their children at home, or at least for art, for example. They didn't want their child to be limited to whatever materials they had at home that they could afford. They wanted the children to be able to have something a little different, and even though we kept it pretty simple, the fact that they were engaged in these activities with other children made it kind of a big deal. And I actually brought in a lady to teach them a language, and it was a very mutually beneficial thing there as also, because she really needed the money and she was very good at what she did, and they enjoyed her and appreciated her company and learned a lot from her. So we did art, we did language, we did nature, and we did basic sewing, and we did cooking as well. I did have on the docket for a biblical archaeologist that I had interviewed and become friendly with over the years, for him to do a Zoom or a video conference at some point. That never transpired. We kind of played hit and miss for months. He's a very busy guy, and I can certainly appreciate that. So we weren't able to get that done the first year. I took this project on because I knew that the families needed something. I could tell that they were so desiring this space, this opportunity to be able to bring different families together and learn and grow together and have that socialization that was so desperately needed. Because in my experience, at least growing up as a child, the homeschool family kids were always shunned. And one thing that I recognized from a very early age probably more due to my gifts than anything else because I could feel it, was that a lot of these children were socially awkward because they did not have the opportunity to socialize regularly with other children. In my youth and going to high school, and the kids that were homeschooled just didn't have friends. They didn't have anybody to interact with, and as a result, they were extremely shy and anxious at times and not able to function, I don't think, normally in an outside environment. They would become too stressed out, or they just wouldn't know how to deal and play with other children because they'd been at home for years learning, and they just didn't have that interaction that helps them to flourish and grow, and the moms were frustrated. So my goal here was to help the kids, help the moms, and I shopped for months for books and educational materials, supplies, decorations for the rooms, toys, blackboards, things like that. Well, actually, we used whiteboards. But we were very fortunate in that the space that we were provided was kind of separated into two rooms, but it was one big room. And it had a small kitchen. And it had a bathroom. So we were totally self-contained, and we were able to utilize the entirety of that space for the children. And we were able to provide, the cooking class as a result because there was a kitchen there. I mean, what more could you ask for? As well as the sink and a place to have snacks and lunch if the kids chose. And it was great because when we cooked, the kids would eat what we had for snack or lunch. It was an awesome opportunity. What I taught them in our quote-unquote nature class was we started off learning all of the birds of the area. And that's very important because most public schools in the state teach birds in elementary school and the calls and what they look like so the children can identify their local birds. I did it for that reason because the public school provided it, and I thought it was a great way to get the kids familiar with nature and appreciate nature. But also because in a case of danger, I taught them to look and listen for what the birds do and what the animals do, so that if they're out on their own in the wild, they can have a better sense of awareness as to what's going on around them. I taught them to build campfires. We learned how to tie knots. A lot of the things that I talked about in the first segment, we touched on a bunch of those in the first year, and I had a person set up to come back the next year that was able to do simple mechanics, that was willing to work with the children to be able to do things like fix a lawnmower, how to change your oil, how to do simple, and this is at an elementary school level. The kids were from 3 or 4 right on up to 12. I taught them about local indigenous trees and how they were used to build things like cabins, what trees were better to build a fire, birch bark is better to start a fire, what they could use in an emergency situation should they need to build a lean-to, and pine needle tea, what trees were edible, what parts of the trees were edible, what parts of the trees were good for cordage. And then I brought in an expert and we taught the children. We walked one of the mom's properties and the children learned what plants were edible, what could be used also for cordage, what plants and herbs they could use to heal themselves and their families. We also did organic gardening. We learned about that. The crafts that we did were nature-based. We made bird feeders and we made crafts out of pine cones and things that were based out of nature. They learned to tie knots. We covered so much, and the kids and parents absolutely loved it. I made it a fun environment so that they wanted to learn. These co-ops are essential, I feel, if you are interested in homeschooling your children. Please check into your state laws. Every state is specific as to what they require for homeschool, and some allow you to interview with a certified teacher at the end of the year to make sure that your child is okay to go on to the next year. They may require a brief synopsis. of what your child learned throughout the course of the year for each subject. You are able to have a little more freedom in the subjects that you want to teach your children at the homeschool level. And please just check your local laws. You can Google it. Some states require that the children be tested, and I know of cases where that's been done over the phone. One question parents present to me is in regards to curriculum. There are so many curriculums out there for all types of budgets, and there are a lot of really great Christian programs out there as well. Did you know? Do your research. There are so many programs that are out there for free that you can find on the internet. What a lot of the parents that I worked with do is they'll take a mishmash and take what they like from each program and piece it together to form their curriculum. These children go to school from 8 to 12 and then have a 2 to 4 hour co-op once a week so that they're able to have that interaction and learn the things that they wouldn't normally learn. And public schools will allow you to come in and take things like music or orchestra in many cases as a homeschool child, so that they're able to utilize the public school programs to further aid in their education and take the weight off of you. Also, find a parent or find a group of parents, and if you're a working mom or a single parent, you may find that they're willing to teach your child during the homeschool hours, and in return, you can take their children on the weekends, give them a break, and do educational things with them on the weekends. Take them camping, teach them about nature, take them on field trips. We had scheduled a maple syrup plant trip that we weren't able to fit into our schedule this year, but field trips are knowledge. Take them to a local farm, take them to a local organic farm where they can learn more about crops. Anything like that is considered educational, and your child will truly benefit and be enriched from those experiences. Fishing and hunting can actually be considered homeschool time, things like that, because you're teaching them things. You can get creative with your curriculum. Teach the children the essential things that they need to learn to be more well-rounded in their environment, to be able to protect themselves. And it's knowledge, it's learning. I actually had a small library set up in my homeschool co-op area where the children were able to utilize classic books that are being taken off the shelves. I had classics from when I was a child, when my child was a child, that I was more than happy to bring in and share with these kids who wouldn't necessarily be able to get them at their local library anymore, or definitely not in a public school anymore, because of everything that they're eradicating because it's quote-unquote racist. Homeschool families tend to lean toward the classics because they have the morals and the values there, and they teach them about things in nature. My Side of the Mountain was one of their favorites. We actually watched the movie on that in another program that I ran. So if it's something that you wanted to consider, please delve into it. Do your research with your local laws. Gather a community of people. I have known so many homeschool families that basically just took their families and put all their families' kids together to form their own group so that they had that support system going. And that was an amazing thing to me. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's program. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you here again next week. Same time, same station. If you have any questions or need guidance and direction, and if your child was previously in a public school environment and you're looking for support with them, in working with them to try and sort of unbrainwash them or help them deal with the social negative effects that they've had while at public school, please contact me as well. Maggie, MAGGIE _heart @outlook.com. I'm here for whatever you need. Thank you all for listening, and have a great night.